have been standing at the edge of a change that was already moving before you had words for it. And the date over this moment is not ordinary because it is asking you to notice what has been gathering in silence. There are days when heaven does not arrive with noise, but with a pressure in the chest, a quiet insistence in the room, and a sense that the old air is no longer enough. You may have felt that in the middle of a normal morning, when the light on the floor looked the same, and yet your spirit knew something had shifted. In Scripture, the people who were about to move often did not begin with thunder. They began with a word, a turning, a door that used to feel familiar and suddenly did not. You are being asked to listen in that same way, with the patience of someone who knows that sacred things often begin softly. Even your tiredness can be part of the sign, because exhaustion sometimes appears when a long season is ending and another one is already pressing in from beyond the wall. The heart resists change, but the soul recognizes it. That is why this Friday carries weight, not as superstition, but as a threshold. What is coming is not meant to frighten you, it is meant to wake you. And when heaven moves, it does not ask permission from fear. It simply begins to change everything from the inside out. There is a strange mercy in being interrupted by God before you have fully settled into what is too small for you. You may have been making peace with a room, a routine, or a silence that was never meant to become your final address. The chair by the window, the phone in your hand, the prayer that kept returning at night, all of it can become part of the language of departure. A person can live for so long inside delay that delay starts to feel like identity. But that is not who you are. You are not the pause forever. You are the one being carried through the pause. And when heaven begins to move, it often exposes where you have been adapting to less than what was promised. The ache you feel is not always punishment. Sometimes it is the body of your hope telling the truth before your mind catches up. Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment. You do not need to force a door when the one who opened it is already near it. There is a holiness in waiting without collapsing. There is also a holiness in knowing when waiting has finished its work. This is how change begins to look before it becomes visible. First, it touches the inner room. Then, it reaches the outer one. And by the time the outer room shifts, the inner one has already learned how to stand. It is important that you do not confuse the stillness around you with abandonment, because stillness and absence are not the same thing. The silence that has lasted long enough to make you anxious may also be the silence that has protected you from settling too early. You have been learning, even while disappointed, how to remain open without becoming desperate. That matters more than it seemed to matter at the time. The enemy of your peace would love to teach you that nothing is happening because you cannot yet see it. But heaven has never been limited by your current view. When the night is deepest, the promise is not cancelled. It is hidden. The heart that keeps breathing in faith is not pretending. It is standing where it can still receive. There are moments when the most spiritual thing you can do is keep your posture soft, your spirit awake, and your hands unclenched. You do not need to explain the whole path before you take the next step. You only need enough light for the next obedience. That is often how the new beginning arrives, not with a full map, but with a knowing that refuses to die. And even now, something in you is beginning to recognize that the waiting has changed shape. What was once delay is becoming preparation. What was once confusion is becoming distance from what could not carry you. That is not loss alone. That is mercy wearing a different face. What is changing around you is also changing what can no longer stay hidden in you. A season of pressure reveals the weight you have been carrying and the weight you were never meant to keep. Some burdens look noble because you carried them quietly, but quiet burden is still burden. The room may look ordinary, yet the way you breathe inside it tells a deeper story. Your shoulders have learned a language of caution, your jaw has learned a language of restraint, and your spirit has been translating both. This is why the coming shift feels both tender and serious. It is not merely about getting what you wanted, it is about becoming able to receive what was always meant for you. There is a difference between desire and readiness, and heaven is kind enough to close that gap in you. You are not being shamed for not being ready sooner. You are being formed now so that arrival does not break you. Even the discomfort has purpose when it leads you out of self-protection and into trust. There is a version of you that only exists on the other side of this threshold. Not a stranger, not a fantasy, but the truer self that can breathe without bracing. The signs appear in ordinary places first, in how you answer, in what you stop explaining, in what no longer feels negotiable. That is how the unseen starts becoming visible. It begins in the body, and then it becomes a testimony. What you have called waiting may also have been the period in which your discernment was being sharpened. You can feel the difference now between a loud door and a real one. Loud doors flatter the ego and exhaust the soul. Real doors sometimes arrive almost unnoticed, but they fit the life God is actually building in you. There is wisdom in not moving from pressure alone. There is even more wisdom in not staying still after the season has already turned. Many people miss their turn because they keep asking for more proof when the proof has already been given in peace. Peace is not always soft. Sometimes it is the firm knowledge that one direction has gone dead and another is beginning to breathe. You have lived long enough in tension to know when something is finished. The old pattern may still call your name, but it no longer knows your language. That is one of the clearest signs that heaven is changing the script. The heart that used to run toward old comfort now hesitates, and that hesitation is sacred. It means your spirit is no longer willing to call captivity home. It means the old paint on the wall cannot fool you anymore. You are beginning to see with clean eyes, and when clean eyes arrive, so does the responsibility to answer what they reveal. The moment of change is not only for admiring, it is for crossing. If you have felt a deep movement without a visible reason, there is no need to rush past it. Some things are meant to be recognized before they are named, and recognition itself can be a form of grace. A closed hand can become open before it knows exactly what it is receiving. A weary person can begin to straighten before the explanation arrives. A long prayer can start to unwind in the chest, even while the room stays quiet. This is why your inner life matters so much right now. It's not decorative. It is the place where the future first announces itself. You may be tempted to call everything ordinary because ordinary is easier to survive, but ordinary is not always honest. Sometimes ordinary is where the extraordinary first hides its footprint. The day may look like any other day, but your spirit is not responding like it used to. That mismatch matters. It is often the first evidence that the old order is losing power. What you thought was random may be alignment slowly taking shape. What you thought was only pressure may be the hand of mercy rearranging what fear had organized. Do not underestimate the quiet work being done in you. Heaven often prepares the largest turn by working in the smallest room, and the smallest room is often your willingness to keep listening. There is a kind of courage that does not feel heroic while it is happening. It looks like staying present through the sentence that still hurts. It looks like opening the curtains, even when you do not yet know what kind of day is waiting outside. It looks like washing the cup, answering the message, returning to prayer, and refusing to let disappointment become a doctrine. This kind of courage is not loud, but it is very real. It is the courage that keeps a soul available. You have not been asked to perform certainty. You have been invited to remain reachable. That is why this moment is asking so much of your attention. Attention is the place where agreement begins. What you notice, you can no longer call accidental. What you keep returning to in prayer, you can no longer ignore as coincidence. The movement of heaven often creates a pressure point where your habits and your hope meet. Something in you says yes before your plans can organize a defense. That is not weakness. That is recognition, and recognition is one of the cleanest forms of faith. It does not need fireworks to know what has walked into the room. It only needs enough honesty to bow when truth is near. Keep that honesty close. It will help you cross. The path ahead does not require you to become someone else, only to stop protecting what has already expired. There are loyalties that began in pain and continued long after the pain had finished speaking. You may have stayed faithful to a version of life that was once necessary, but necessity is not destiny. This is where the deeper mercy becomes visible. Heaven does not only give. Heaven also releases. It lifts what has become too heavy for the next stage. It loosens the grip of old names, old fears, old answers that no longer fit the shape of your prayers. You may not yet know exactly what will replace them, and that is fine. A room can be cleared before it is furnished. A winter field can be emptied before it is planted. The stripping away can feel severe, but it is often the prelude to abundance. Not all endings are losses, some are permissions. The permission to stop pretending, to stop shrinking, to stop translating your need into silence. The one who made you has not forgotten how to complete what was started. That completion may not arrive on your preferred timeline, but it is moving. You do not need to force fruit from a branch that is already being tended. You only need to remain rooted where truth is being fed. Now I need you to receive what follows as a sign that is meant to settle, not to agitate. If even one of these signs has landed in you, if your shoulders dropped at any point while hearing this, write 888 in the comments, and then come back to me. This number is not a secret code of power. It is a gentle witness of overflow and quiet confirmation. It marks the place where something in you recognized the message before your mind finished naming it. Typing it is a small agreement, but small agreements are still real. They matter because the soul often says yes through simple acts before it learns how to say it in words. Do not rush this moment as though it were a game. Let it be what it is. A quiet acknowledgement. A steady breath, a sign that you are not imagining the shift that has been moving through you. Then return here with the same openness you brought at the beginning, because the change is not finished speaking yet. What comes next is not separate from this. It is the deepening of it, and once you have written it, keep listening carefully. The message has not exhausted itself. It is only turning toward the part of you that has waited longest. There is a place in every true turning where the signs stop being vague and start becoming undeniable. You know this place because your body reacts before your explanation does. Your breathing changes. Your spine remembers itself. The room seems to hold still long enough for truth to stand up inside you. That is the kind of moment this is becoming. It is not asking you to manufacture feeling. It is asking you to honor what is already moving. Sometimes a single number typed in faith becomes a small altar of recognition. Sometimes that altar is enough to keep your heart from scattering. You do not need to make this larger than it is. You only need to make it honest. And honesty has a way of opening the next layer. There is a calm that arrives when you stop arguing with the evidence of your own spirit. There is also a deeper steadiness that appears when you stop calling every holy nudge imagination. You are not being asked to leap into confusion. You are being asked to notice the firmness beneath it. Keep that firmness close. The next part of the journey will ask for it, not because danger is greater, but because your capacity is growing. This is how grace works when it is preparing a life for more than it has held before. You have probably learned that not every silence is equal. Some silences are empty, but some are full of presence that has not yet taken shape. The difference is felt in the body before it is understood in the mind. Empty silence leaves you frantic. Full silence makes you attentive. The silence around this change has the second quality. It has been training you to pay attention without panicking. That is a precious gift, even if it did not feel like one when the waiting began. The hand that once kept reaching for certainty is slowly learning another rhythm. It is learning to rest without giving up. It is learning to open without performing. It is learning that faith is not the same as pressure. The room you sit in may still contain the same furniture, the same lamp, the same unfinished plans, but the atmosphere inside you is not the same. That matters more than appearances. Heaven often changes the atmosphere before the scene changes. It prepares your senses to recognize arrival. And once recognition matures, the soul becomes less willing to live in fog. It starts asking cleaner questions. What is true? What is finished? What is mine to keep? What must go? These questions are not rebellion, they are part of readiness. The days that follow a hidden shift often feel ordinary on the surface, yet they carry a different weight beneath. You may notice it in a text that no longer pulls you back, in a door you no longer knock on, in a memory that loses its authority over your mood. Those are not small things. They are signs that inner alignment is taking root. A person can only receive so much while still clinging to what contradicts the gift. That is why the release matters. Not because the past was meaningless, but because it was never meant to become your ceiling. You have spent enough time proving that you can survive less than you deserve. Now a different lesson is being written in you. The lesson is not about force. It is about welcome. Welcome is stronger than fear because welcome does not need to control the outcome to remain open. It can sit quietly at the table and trust that what is meant to come will know the way in. This is the posture heaven honors in this season, not grasping, not striving, not dramatizing the process, just staying open while truth does its work. And truth does work. It untangles, clarifies, and restores. It also exposes where you have been settling for noise instead of substance. That exposure is healing, even when it stings. There comes a point when the soul can no longer pretend it does not know what it knows. You may have reached that point in small, private ways, a glance at the same wall, a pause before the same habit, a deeper discomfort with what used to feel normal. This is not failure. This is awakening in motion. And awakening has a tender sharpness to it. It can feel like both relief and grief, because it frees you from what trapped you while also asking you to leave behind what was familiar. Do not rush to silence the grief. Grief is often the witness that something mattered, even if it had to be released. But do not let grief become a prison either. The release is real. The room is changing. The old script is losing authority. You are allowed to feel the weight of that while also trusting the mercy in it. The one who leads you does not break you in order to guide you. He makes room in you for what your present self could not yet carry. That is why the pressure has been so specific. It is not random stress. It is shaping. And shaping is often uncomfortable before it becomes beautiful. Stay with the process long enough to see what it is making possible. The shift you are living through is not only about outcomes. It is about your relationship to timing. Timing can bruise a person when they think delay is denial. But timing can also heal a person when they realize delay was protection. You may never thank every closed path, but you can recognize how many of them spared you from building your life on a weaker ground. That recognition changes the heart. It turns bitterness into discernment. It turns impatience into wisdom. It turns the need to control into the willingness to trust. And trust is not passive. It is a living posture, one that keeps walking even when the next hill is not yet visible. You have been in that posture longer than you think. The fact that you are still listening proves it. The fact that your spirit has not gone numb proves it. The fact that you are still capable of being surprised by hope proves it. Those are not small evidences. They are signs that the inner ground has been protected even when the outer ground felt unstable. Do not dismiss them. They are part of the testimony. They tell you that heaven has been at work where other eyes could not follow. And what is hidden in the dark is often the very thing that will become most visible in the light. There is a moment in every long season when the old fear realizes it no longer governs the room. It may still speak, but its voice has lost some of its weight. You recognize this moment because your body no longer obeys panic as quickly as it once did. You hesitate before the old script, and that hesitation is freedom beginning to breathe. You are not becoming careless. You are becoming clear, clear enough to see what has been draining you, clear enough to notice who and what has been demanding too much of your inner life, clear enough to understand that peace is not a luxury for other people. It is part of your inheritance. This clarity does not arrive to flatter you. It arrives to steady you. It tells you that what was confusing was not always complex. Sometimes it was just misaligned. And what was difficult was not always impossible. Sometimes it was only too small for the life being formed in you. As that becomes more obvious, your choices start to change. You answer differently. You linger less where your spirit is diminished. You pray with less performance and more sincerity. That is the sound of change becoming practical. It is one thing to believe heaven is moving. It is another thing to start living as if that movement is real. You are entering that second place. The path of transformation often feels like subtraction before it feels like addition. This is one reason people get discouraged. They think the emptying means loss, when in fact it is making space. A drawer cannot hold what it was not cleared to hold. A glass cannot receive what it is already full of. You have been through enough narrowing to understand that some fullness is not abundance, but blockage. The love of God does not merely fill, it also orders. It removes what cannot remain, without poisoning the rest. That is why the honesty of this season matters. Your soul is being taught to distinguish between what comforts and what completes. Those are not always the same thing. Comfort can be familiar. Completion is often unfamiliar at first, yet completion brings a deeper rest. It lets you exhale without suspicion. It lets you stop rehearsing survival and begin practicing trust. That shift is profound, even when it happens quietly. It changes how you enter a room, how you read a message, how you carry your own name. You stop asking every moment whether you are safe enough and begin asking whether you are aligned enough. That is a holy question. It keeps your steps honest. It keeps your heart available, and availability is often the doorway to what was promised. You may have noticed how certain things no longer catch you the same way. A provocation that would have stolen your peace now falls flatter. A familiar disappointment that once controlled your mood now feels weaker. A voice that used to sound convincing now sounds old. That is not because you became harder, it is because you became less available to what drains you. The change may be subtle, but it is real. It shows that the center of gravity in you is moving, not away from tenderness, but away from bondage, not away from feeling, but away from confusion. This is how heaven quietly returns a person to themselves. It restores discernment, and discernment restores peace. When peace returns, it does not erase your history. It gives you a different relation to it. You can remember without drowning. You can grieve without losing your footing. You can look at the closed door and no longer mistake it for your identity. This is a great mercy. And it is happening even now, through the very things that once felt like resistance. The resistance has been part of the shaping. The pressure has been part of the preparation. The stillness has been part of the instruction. All of it has been speaking, and your spirit has been learning how to listen. I want you to stay close to the simple signs in this season, because simple signs are often the most trustworthy. The way you sleep, the way you wake, the place your mind goes when it is not trying to perform, the instant your chest loosens when a truth finally lands. These are not random details, they are the language of inner alignment. The external change you have been waiting for often begins with these private movements. When a life is being reordered, the first evidence is usually internal. Then the outside begins to catch up. That means you do not need to force visible proof before you honor invisible progress. The invisible is not less real. It is often more real because it is where roots are formed. The world may only notice the fruit, but the roots have already been doing their quiet work underground. You are in a root season and a rising season at the same time. That is why it can feel heavy and hopeful together. Root seasons are hidden, rising seasons are visible. The same God is present in both. Do not rush the hidden part just because you long for the visible. The hidden part is where stability is born. And stability is what will keep the visible from becoming another place of fear. If you are sensing that this is speaking directly to your inner life, then I need you to write these words in the comments now. Estu pronto, and then come back to me. The phrase is not a performance. It is a present tense agreement with what is already being formed in you. It names readiness before every outer detail has fully changed. That matters because readiness is often the first doorway through which new life enters. Typing it is a way of letting the truth become explicit. A hidden yes is real, but a spoken yes leaves a clearer mark, so write it carefully and do not hurry past it as though it were only a symbol. It is a small seal of consent, and consent is powerful when it is given to truth. After you write it, return here with the same stillness that brought you this far. The message is deepening now. It is moving from recognition into embodiment, and embodiment is where change becomes lived rather than merely felt. Keep breathing. Keep listening. The next layer is not outside you. It is already beginning to settle where your spirit has made room. You have been carrying more than you admitted, and yet you have not collapsed the way fear predicted. That is evidence of grace, even if it came through tears, fatigue, or long nights with very little comfort. Grace does not always remove the weight immediately. Sometimes it strengthens the frame before it lifts the load. That is what has been happening beneath the surface. You may have felt fragile, but you were being reinforced. You may have felt forgotten, but you were being steadied. You may have felt slow, but you were being taught how to endure without hardening. There is dignity in that kind of endurance. It means your heart stayed alive under pressure. It means the part of you that still hopes did not disappear. It means the future still has access to you. That access is precious. Guard it well. Not every voice deserves entrance into the room of your becoming. Some voices only know how to name what is missing. Heaven, by contrast, names what is forming. It sees what is being returned. It sees what fear tried to bury and what mercy has not released. You are not done because you are tired. You are not blocked because you are delayed. You are being prepared with a precision that will make sense later, even if it feels... Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.